Hello, everyone, and welcome to VNture podcast with your hosts, me, Taros113, and MR. Today is a very important day because it is going to be our first Readport of the 2024 new year. New beginnings, and here we are to talk about some of the things we've been reading and our thoughts about them, and hopefully we'll bring some of that good energy to all of you listening as well. So with that, MR, why don't you take us off first?
Oh god, and what a beginning it was. We've been contacted by a developer from upcoming visual novel and their Kickstarter project, because it's funded by Kickstarter. It's called Profiler Files New Orleans by Studio Land Creations. And I felt, you know what? It sounds intriguing enough. Let me try it. Okay, so let me point to the picture. I'll repeat some description given me by the dev. This game could be described as a mixture of Ace Attorney games and the TV series Criminal Minds. I mean, I haven't watched that, but it features extravagant and humorous characters, but also delving into dark and tragic situations. So my first reaction when I played the demo is that art style kind of reminds me of an old title called 13 with Roman numerals. I don't know if anybody knows that title. And
30?
Yeah, 13. 13.
Oh, 13?
Yes, with Roman numerals.
Okay.
And it has that comic booksy visual aesthetic to it, but I feel like the biggest impact from the aesthetic is how colorful and vibrant the backgrounds are compared to characters colored by only black and white. Very interesting choice. I mean, I dig it. It sets some atmosphere in place. So cool. So it's a game in which you take the role of FBI profiler on the case. Your job is to negotiate with people and try to understand them. Your performance on that front influences what choices are available later down the line in the story when the time comes to solve the tough situation going on and progress the situation, right? In that demo that I've played, I played it a couple times, I tried different chases, and I have to say, it's pretty interesting. The setup is you're thrown into the situation, a hostage situation. The father took hostage his daughters and demands to see a certain man. And then you come in, you have to navigate, you have to negotiate, you have to inspect the place. And interestingly enough, in the moment of inspection, the game turns from the visual novel into that point and clicky style, because you get a room and you have to click around to gather your thoughts, maybe just, profile the guy. And yeah, it's pretty neat so far. I enjoyed my time.
Yes, because the whole point of you going into profile is because he is a suspect, a potential suspect, right?
Yeah. I mean, right now, in that case, it was obvious because he is the culprit holding his daughter's hostage, and he has demands, and you negotiate with him the release of hostage and blah, blah, blah. So the situation is set in stone. You're not an investigator, rather you are more of a negotiator of a given situation. But still, given the interior of the house, you kind of want to get to know that guy in the limited time frame you have.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And so as, this member of the police force, there's obviously other side characters and people he has to report to and other rules the main character has to follow, right?
Yeah, I mean, your supervisor is such a funny guy. I love that character. You have your supervisor, and because of the situation with the hostage takeover, you are only one invited in, right, with the perpetrator. But you have your wire with you, and you communicate remotely with your supervisor, and he's like a guiding voice. He's just hilarious. Yeah.
Okay, so it's not exactly something like an Ace Attorney where you're literally playing as a lawyer to defend clients and whatnot. This is more you're in the thick of the action.
Yeah.
And you're in the middle of a delicate situation.
Exactly. Yep, exactly.
Okay, I see.
It takes some inspiration from Ace Attorney when it comes to how you interact with those characters, how you investigate the place. And again, you go through family photos to understand his situation, where he's coming from, what's his background, what's that about, etc., etc. Like, that's pretty neat. And this is probably tied with my first feedback after the demo. Please make outlines for the point-and-click section, because I understand, probably from the gameplay's perspective, kind of want to hide some things, so it's not super obvious where to click. I get that. But once I hover over things, please highlight them. And I understand the game is not finished, it's still early access, it's a very early demo, get it? But it was very hard to distinguish when you have a row of photos, whether or not you're clicking on a group or all those interactables are different from each other. So painstakingly, I clicked on every single one of the photos. Hey, it was important. I don't want to mess it up.
Oh my goodness. Yes, the old school adventure games where you just had to click on everything and you had to hope that there wasn't one tiny little thing hidden in that pixel mess that you needed to click on. You're absolutely right. And nowadays, I feel like you just have to make it so that when you hover over something important, it'll highlight it, like you said.
Exactly.
Because that's the fun part of the game is, investigating for clues and getting results. Yep. It's not in just blindly scouring over the whole background,
Yeah, exactly, yeah. And to be frank, your cursor changes, but still, you have to squint your eyes and focus on when it changes, fine. But the second part is when you have a group of items that are the same interactable, but then you don't know. Wait, maybe one of those 7 photos is a different one. You have a different interaction. So I was still clicking each and every one of them. Maybe one is more important. Oh, please. Make outline.
But yes. But overall, with like the fundamentals, with the art style, you still came out pretty positive about the demo?
Yeah. I really liked it. I played it 3 times because I focused on one major split of how the situation is resolved, and I wanted to see all of those variations. Now, there are smaller changes because obviously you have a lot of choices, small dialogues, and I saw those variations, but I felt like in the first case, there's one major split in 3 different outcomes. But maybe I'm wrong, maybe there's more. So yeah, I was pleasantly surprised, but please, another feedback number 2, please make a safe system, because I really don't want it to turn into Cabaret. And the other title I played, was it half a year ago? It was a VN with folklore, with those weird creatures and brewing tea. And it didn't have the safe load system at all. And
ouch.
And that was so painful for me, like so annoying. And please make it so that there is saving and loading profiler files. Because that would make it so much easier to check out those different variations, etc. I understand, maybe for the immersion's sake, you kind of feel like the autosave system is better, but please leave it to the player and the reader. Give us this save and load.
Oh yeah, it needs that splash of modern paint.
Yeah. And again, maybe this is the case of this being an early demo that it didn't have. Hopefully, this is the feature that will be in the game.
Well, hey, glad to hear you enjoyed it. I didn't have a chance to check it out either, but depending on what you said, I thought I might as well. And you've given some good praise.
Yeah. And I'm eagerly awaiting their Kickstarter. So I already saved it. Okay. I
was. Oh, there you go. MR in your Kickstarters.
Yes, exactly. Come on. It's Kickstarter. I have to check it out. Oh yeah, and one personal feedback. Oh, this is probably my nothing wrong, but on a personal level, when the chapter ends, and we had one chapter in the demo. Similarly to another point of click I remember, it was called The Walking Dead by Telltale's game.
Mm-hmm.
They had a summary. Oh, this happened this chapter, and a couple of things are listed off, right? I remember we had a lot of fun with my friends sharing that screen of who did what in the chapter. Please make it one screen, because in this game it's like several screens of information. Put it into one easily shareable screen. That's a personal pet peeve of mine. So I can post other people, oh, this is how I solved the case.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a personal thing, okay?
That does sound fun.
Yeah.
In the meantime, while you've been having fun there, I've been keeping myself busy with another title I had been looking forward to for a long time. It's been on my backlog, and it's a Switch. Well, it's currently on the Switch. I almost said it's a Switch exclusive, but it's not. It is 13 Sentinels Aegis Rim. I'm a huge fan of the developer Vanillaware. And so after playing through several of their other games and hearing that they made this one that's kind of a visual novel and stuff, I've always been looking forward to this. And I think over halfway through so far. There's a lot of things I want to say about it, though, and a lot of things that are really dragging it down, in my opinion. First off, it's unique in that it has 13 main characters. It's set in Japan in 1985, and you have these 13 different high schoolers.
Uh-huh.
And on another thread in the story, you see them in the future. They're all together. They're all piloting mechas, and they're all fighting these kaiju aliens that are trying to, destroy the Earth and all that classic stuff. And you need to defend this poor planet. And so that whole mix, that disconnect, is very integral to this story. I feel like this VN is best described as having that disconnect because there's so many different aspects about its story that are just kind of floating in its own vague vacuum. Individually, the stories are nice. I like the characters. There's a lot of cool things that they're doing too. It's like one girl is having strange dreams of her classmates in a destroyed sci-fi future. And over time, and as the story is playing out, it's getting more and more confusing about what's dream and what's reality. No matter how ridiculous it's starting to look for her. There's one guy who's from 1945. He's a Japanese soldier who ends up getting time warped to 1985, 40 years later. And so he's in a very different world. He's got all sorts of weird things to get accustomed to. And he's also trying to figure out how he can go back for his family and whatnot. And then there's one girl who finds a robot alien, and she's imagining herself as a sort of movie like E.T. going on some adventures while there's Secret Service bad guys trying to stop her.
Okay.
It's a more lighthearted tone. But it's weird how it plays out. Honestly, I wouldn't really call what 13 Sentinels does a visual novel.
Huh.
It's a side scroller at its core, where you choose the character and you go through their story, and you mainly control the character and walk in the side scrolling setting, whether it's at school or at home or at some weird futuristic setting or whatnot.
Okay.
You talk to other characters, and along the way, there's some keywords that you'll bank in your memory cloud, and you can mention some of these keywords to characters to advance the story.
Okay.
This all kind of makes it sound more like a gameplay aspect. It's not really like a visual novel where you're reading text in the text box, or there's narration, or there's, clear-cut choices. It's more like you're just kind of watching a video game, cutscene playing out. where you're just hitting A for every line, and then things play out, and the story kind of takes you along. It's not exactly what I'd call a visual novel. I certainly wouldn't use it as an example of one. And what's more, I mentioned earlier about that disconnect. It's really hard to say there's one single thread that goes through each person's story, because there's frequent flashbacks, there's frequent, scene changes to things taking place in some vague other time, dropping new vague information. Like, God, there's all sorts of little scenes like that where it's like, so the plan is progressing perfectly. And, you got guys going like, I received and carried out my orders from that person.
Okay.
You see that in Japanese visual novel stuff all the time.
Yeah, it's basically suspense for the reader of what the hell are they talking about, even though those characters inward understand those cryptic messages.
Exactly, but you gotta keep it hidden from the player.
Exactly.
Oh man. And so it's doubly worse because, like I mentioned, this is sci-fi, and it is just hitting me over the head with all sorts of those classic sci-fi stuff. Like, obviously, there's the mecha things, because that's kind of what this is about. But there's also heavy emphasis on the time travel. There's all these out-of-order chronological scenes. There's androids, body swappings, genetics, strange pills and medicines, and personality altercations, and it's like, holy crap, I cannot get a foundation on this at all. I am getting swept away in everything going on.
Damn. Because I think this is a problem they put themselves in by putting so colorful cast of characters, then there have so many angles to tell this one story from, even if there is a one story.
Jeez, yeah, but I mean, that's its own issue. And like I said, there's 13 main characters, and they're all going through their stuff. And honestly, it's kind of a drawback that they're interconnected, because there's so many character names. You know how it is with Japanese stuff, how there's the first name, the family name, and then the personal name. Other characters will refer to them by one or the other, and then some characters call other by their nicknames.
Oh god, yeah.
Again, 13 main characters and a bunch more side characters. It's a lot to keep track of. The worst is like when there's two characters talking, and out of nowhere they mention like a third character, and I'm like, who the hell are you? And I gotta check my notes, and it's like, what? Why the hell are you mentioning her now? Oh my god. It's another thing for my poor brain to handle.
Yeah, they got keep you on your toes.
So I mentioned that, I don't really consider it a visual novel. Another part is that half the game is in RTS. It's a real-time strategy of them piloting their mechas. You choose your loadout of characters, and then you have to guard your terminal as there's waves of enemy kaiju monsters swarming in, and you position them, and you use your abilities to shoot them down and stop them, and then they attack you, and you got to manage your health and all that. Like, it's an RTS.
Yeah, where's
exactly.
the problem?
That's half the game. It's kind of a struggle to say something's a visual novel when you have this much focus on actual gameplay.
Wait a moment. Just wait a moment. How did you mention now an RTS when before you were so adamant calling it side-scroller?
Exactly, because the game's split in half. Like, it's literally an option when you start your playthrough and stuff. There's 3 sections. One is the glossary aspect, which is really cool. It's a very accurate and up-to-date glossary. That's been super helpful. One of which is recollection, which is the whole side-scrolling part where you choose one of the 13 main characters to play as, and you explore their story, unlock those branches. And then the third, aspect is the destruction part, where you literally just play a video game. And I mean, that is cool in the sense that you can choose your own pacing for the story, where generally if you get sick of all the story stuff, then you can pop into the gameplay, and when you're tired of that, you can go back to the story stuff. So that's nice. But they are completely distinct. And it's an actual video game right there. On top of that, I can't really say I enjoy the RTS
Oh,
stuff.
okay.
I'm not just saying that as like a fan, but it's like I don't think it's very good.
Oh, I see.
Visually, it's like entirely on the vector line battlefield of the city. The enemies are like Space Invader looking units, which also makes it kind of hard to distinguish them. Like some of them are more important than others, and they have different weaknesses and stuff. And I'm looking at you like, you're just a tiny little arrow rectangle thing. Are you different from the other rectangle-y looking thing?
Okay. How would you rate a gameplay story feedback loop?
See,
Aw.
that's what I was thinking of earlier when I was trying to collect my thoughts about this. How off the top of my head, I wouldn't say 13 Sentinels is a bad game. But then I break down all the aspects and I think about it, I think about the gameplay and the many things that they could be doing better. And it's like, honestly, I wouldn't say I'm really enjoying the gameplay. I think about the characters and they're pretty cool and stuff. I think about the story and how disconnected it is and how I'm not following anything. And it's just throwing me all over the place. The music is, it's not bad, but I don't remember. It's kind of forgettable.
Oh.
The art style is solid, but Vanillaware, they've worked on fantasy style games in the past, whether it's set in like Norse mythology or Japanese folklore or the classic Dungeons and Dragons medieval Europe setting. And those settings benefit so much more from their art style and their very pretty artwork. And then you have 13 Sentinels, like modern day high school with some sci-fi mecha stuff. And it's like, it really doesn't live up to their potential that much. And so I'm just thinking of like all the different things, and I'm realizing that a lot of 13 Sentinels is kind of below the mark for what I'm looking for. And all in all, it's like, man, I don't know. It's hard for me to come up with things to say that I like about this game.
You feel like there's an aspect too many? Like this game would benefit from either less character or maybe more intertwined story, or maybe not that many different aspects as a side scroller and gameplay segments.
Well, on the one hand, I always appreciate a company or a visual novel trying new things.
Yeah.
And being different and weird and trailblazing. Because, at least it's something to separate yourself from somewhere else, and I can respect the effort that goes into it. Mm-hmm. As for, God, what I would do to make it better in my eyes, it's like, honestly, it's hard to nail down any one thing. Because even though the story is a giant web of betrayals and secrets and weird themes that I'm not familiar with, there are many people who like that sort of stuff. There's a bunch of people who would just love reading this and untangling like the whole ball of yarn of all its terms and story and relationships. But that's not really me. And the way it's going so far, it's like I'm not really motivated or interested enough to hunker down into it like, other people probably would. So I don't know. I guess there's some people who would love 13 Sentinels. This is exactly the sort of thing that's up their lane. For me, it's just far too messy and weird for me to enjoy.
And you feel like at some point, it just lost you.
I'm sorry?
My question to you is, did the 13 Sentinels at some point during that convoluted story and all the mixtures of gameplay, side-scrolling, etc., just lost you at that point?
Well, it's never lost me because on the one hand, that's a one good thing about it having 13 main characters is that each of their individual stories doesn't go too deep or convoluted. Like I mentioned with like the girl who thinks she's in an E.T. style movie with her robot alien. Like it you always have some sort of backbone, some sort of foundation for all of their stories to keep the general gist of things grounded. So that's not always bad. It's never that I get lost. It's more so that I just have no clue what kind of scene they're going to drop on me next. Where it's like, where someone's at the school talking and has, oh man, this reminds me of that weird memory I've had. And then you go to a flashback that you're seeing for the first time, and it's in some massive lab in the future with like androids and some dude programming a consciousness into it. And I'm like, what the hell? Where did this come from? What did this have to do with anything else? And there's a few threads connecting it to other stuff, but you know, when you've got dozens of scenes with a few threads to specific other scenes, it's like, oh man, my poor head.
Damn.
All in all, I mean, I'm still gonna finish it. Like I said, I think I'm over halfway through. I do want to see how this wraps up, but I don't think it's going to be a clean, pretty ending. I'm pretty sure it's going to follow this route. But we'll see how it goes. Oh boy.
Oh boy. So I'm waiting for the next Readport. We'll see. We'll see if you change your mind or not. But
we'll see. If it does, who knows? Maybe I'll talk about it next month. Okay. If you don't hear anything else, you guys can probably figure out the rest.
Dang. Yeah. But speaking on continuations, I've been continuing reading Amatsutsumi. That was a second title I've been reading this.
Yes, very cool.
Before I go too deep into that, Profiler Files, the demo of that Kickstarter title, was pretty short. It had some. It showed what it had the setup for, its atmosphere, and how it deals with investigations, or rather profiling, with your instinct being very important, right? Of being a profiler. And this title is way longer, and oh my god, I just don't know where to begin. Let me just quickly recap the story of Amatsutsumi. Right, it's a story about a demigod who fled his village. And I used a description of godling. I mean, some sort of a smaller deity, mostly a human with supernatural powers, right? So he comes from a village that is very secluded, and how it influences him is that due to his power, his emotions are very muted. And because of that, he has trouble with expressing himself in this environment of how normal people behave. So that's the setup. And this is the second character. I struggle to call them routes because this title is very smart about its routing system. It takes a ladder, meaning there is so far at least, one route of story. And at certain points, it gives you an ability to, okay, I end this story here with this character. That's her ending. Goodbye. So in this case, on the second character, the first one was a high school girl who found the protagonist in the forest and took him in. And this route is about a shrine maiden. And I liked one aspect, that it increased the intensity of that supernatural element. Whereas when it comes to the previous route, it was all about blending in with society and how this guy is just inept in a lot of ways when it comes to emotionally showing what is going on. Not without its reason, by the way, because his supernatural power was that he could speak into existing commands, right? So he could make you do something by voicing that as a strong opinion. You should clean the table. If he put enough emotions into it, it becomes a command for you to do. That you cannot not do it. You cannot deny that command. So obviously, because of that, he was always raised not to show emotions, not to trigger his special powers by mistake. In the second round, since it's all about a shrine maiden, she's more involved in the supernatural element. Still, that very obtuse. Nothing is truly served on the silver platter, but she understands that the spirits exist, there are some supernatural things going on. So we are a bit deeper, so that's interesting. And to be honest, that character was absolute blast to read. She has that shy personality and low self-esteem, which is hilarious combo. in visual novels. And now I have to say it because her drama is so stupid.
Oh, stupid drama in my visual novel.
Because I understand what's the setup. She's so shy and has so low self-esteem. She doesn't think she deserves friends, right? So whenever she forms a bond and has a friend, she wants to do everything for them, right? To be the best friend she could ever be. But that is something that drags her past when she lost a friend in a tragic accident. And she just cannot let go of that feeling of grief. I feel by reading Fate, you might be familiar with survivor's guilt, right? But here is in such an extreme and illogical way that she tries to sacrifice herself for a vague chance of maybe there's mystical powers that will do something about the tragic situation. It was so stupid. I mean, listen. There was a very intense moment. Protac has to just talk sense into her. It's late at night. They discuss, listen, no friend would accept a sacrifice of their friends for their sake. That's not how friendships work, okay? And she's like, no, I have to do it because I regret. And the biggest thing they did that pissed me off, okay? They having very tough discussion. Very tough discussion. And she's super irrational. The Protac kind of cold and detached. Okay, so I understand that there's some barrier of communication between them. And then the H scene starts. I'm like, no, you didn't. Oh, God.
Poorly timed H scenes in my visual novel? Oh, no, say it ain't so.
It was so. Oh my God, I was so angry at that point.
Oh, well. But generally, you've really been enjoying Hamatsuzumi, right?
Hamatsuzumi is really cool so far. I had only 2 major faults with that so far. Sadly, this character's drama is one of them. Even though, later down the line, how and in which way it's resolved, it's really tasteful, I have to say. But the way it progressed was so stupid, I just can't. Yeah, that was the low point so far for me.
So far?
Yeah, because I think there are 4 characters, ? And this is the second one.
Yeah, I was just about to ask how far you think you're through in the VN so far.
Maybe I'm 40%. I expect some twists because I have strong suspicions and I don't want to spoil to our viewers.
Nice.
Yeah. There is one character who seems to be involved in way more than she lets on to, and drops some quotes I cannot get rid of from my mind. So I'm suspicious, okay? There will be some twists.
Hey, looking forward to it, and hopefully they either catch you off guard or confirm your suspicions either way. But no matter what, But the point is, I hope you enjoy.
So far, yeah, I enjoy it. It's pretty cool. I look forward to reading more.
Then this has been one heck of a Readport for the month.
Yeah, it was quite a
all sorts of titles, all sorts of reactions in between. Woo!
Oh yeah, and I'm looking forward by the end of the I think it was 1st of February or the end of January. They opened the Kickstarter for the Profiler files. Oh, I'm in. You better believe I'm in.
He's got that credit card ready to go.
Swipe. Yeah.
Okay. Then yeah, I'll check it out too. I'm looking forward to it, and I'll wrap up my titles. So thank you everyone for listening. I hope you enjoyed the show, and make sure you, as always, to tune in next week. New episodes every Sunday.
Yep. Thank you to our listeners, and VNture out.
VNture out.